Morrison.
I think we've begun.
All right.
Hi, Arrington.
Hey, Markly.
Good to see you.
So good to see you too.
Yeah.
So good to see all these beautiful people here.
They really are, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Right on.
So I'm definitely not used to seeing you in this position.
No.
The new record, it's a piano trance series.
Yeah.
Saturn in Jupiter. Is that right?
Saturn and Pisces.
Saturn in Pisces.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking Christmas on Jupiter, I think.
I
Whole
like the
different
sound of
thing.
that too.
Okay, that's the next one.
That'll be the next one.
Great. So I read something you wrote that said piano, when you first started doing music, kind of represented everything you wanted to tear down as far as like Western music, and it's rigid. It's
Yeah.
a very, it can be an unforgiving instrument if you're looking to get really out there
Right.
without throwing some screws and ping pong balls and things like that in there.
Yeah, which I'm not going to be doing any of that on this particular iteration.
It's prepared enough, this piano.
Yeah. Not doing any of that kind of stuff. I'm into that, getting different sounds and stuff, but for the purposes of this iteration, no extended preparations. I'll just be playing the keyboard and pedals.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So piano was your first instrument as a child,
It's true, yeah.
and you were forced to take lessons.
Well, no, not exactly. What happened, I grew up in the church, as some of you know, and for a 3 or 4-year-old person, church is pretty dang boring. So at the conclusion of your typical church service, if I found a free pathway to get away from the, all the elderly people who were trying to set up for the macaroni potluck and all that kind of thing,
Right.
I would just make a beeline straight for the organ, and I'd find that the organist had turned the organ off and taken the key out. So then I'd make a beeline from the organ to the piano, and I would do my thing for as long as I possibly could until a responsible adult would come and shoo me away. So at a certain point, I think my dad said, like, oh, you're interested in piano. Well, you've got to take piano lessons if you want to play piano. And so I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. Like, it sounds really cool, because I'd play all the keys and I'd make up little stories, and
Yeah.
like the low notes would be like the sound of thunder, and the middle notes would be like a dragon, and the high notes would be like raindrops falling on the ground. Like, I had all these little stories in my head, but I was like, okay, piano lessons, I'll try that out. And so they took me to this lady, and it was like the most rudimentary approach, where she wanted me to see the note on the page and play the note on the keyboard, and I'd be like, well, what do the pedals do? It's like, oh no, we're not going to do that yet. That's you get to do the pedals when you have been practicing a little longer.
Right. You have to earn the pedals.
You got to earn the so like and well, what about like all these? And I like was showing her stuff I was doing. It's like, oh no, like you got to learn one note at a time, and I don't think I got past like 2 lessons, because it was just so dreadfully.
It was
boring.
too fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was just this like very rudimentary approach that just wasn't doing it for me. So I didn't really, other than singing to myself, I didn't really get into the idea of like being a musician until kind of later on, like in junior high school. Well, I did actually, before that, I did some musical theater.
Oh yeah? Like
yeah.
what shows were you in?
Well, they were all all like original shows, so nothing you would have heard of. But there's this show called Peace Child that was it was like an anti-nuclear arms race play for children.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's heavy for
And
a
this is in Little
child.
Rock, Arkansas, so it was that we had people picketing outside.
Whoa.
So I've been
no
no
way.
stranger to controversy since a young age. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. This is back when Bill Clinton was the governor. So the Clintons came to the show and sat in the audience.
Oh, no
Back
way.
in the day, yeah.
So you performed for a
Yeah.
pre-sitting president.
Yeah, yeah. This is like 1984, 85,
Uh-huh.
around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they took any notes. So you had some. So this album though,
Yeah,
right?
the album.
You had some fun with the titles. It seems like.
Yeah.
Descriptive maybe.
I don't remember any of them.
You don't? Can I?
You have 'em written down?
Can I recall a few
Yeah.
for you? Okay. I'm not going to read them all, but some of my favorites. Spinal Cord of the Rainbow Serpent Blues.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's a good one.
My Bones Are Made of Something Mighty.
Yeah.
And then The Mystery of Boojalud and the 4,000-Year-Old Rock and Roll Band.
Yeah. No, so
That's the epic piece. And it sounds like there is a story or a mystery there.
yeah, so the Boojalud, that's actually a really nice segue into, I mean, so pretty early on in the more I learned about music, the more I would get kind of frustrated with what I saw as like the parameters of, Western music. And then, going beyond that, I mean, even like everything to do with Western civilization, any way you look at it. But like as it's kind of defined by its musical output, like you look at this instrument and all the notes are kind of already laid out for you. The keyboard is not terribly forgiving if you're hearing a sound inside your head and it fits somewhere in between. If it's between that interval, you don't really have a lot of options. So the title, the Boojalud and the 4,000-Year-Old Rock and Roll Band, that's a reference to the master musicians of Tijuca. So this is this village in Morocco that it's kind of up on the mountain. It's not really near, there aren't really any cities nearby. And they preserved this really wonderful style of trance music that for maybe up to 1,000 years was reputed as having a very powerful healing effect on people who would come. They would have these festivals that would go all day and all night for 3 days at a time. More than 100 musicians, nonstop.
Wow.
Circular breathing on these pipes and, banging the shit out of drums. And it would just go on and on and on. If one of the musicians got tired, they'd take a break, but then there would be, 3 or 4 people who'd just come and take the pipe and,
pick up where they left off.
Pick up where they left off. And William S. Burroughs and a lot of the beatnik writers kind of discovered Tijuca when they were living in Tangier, writing, what's that Burroughs novel that he wrote there? The Naked Lunch.
Oh, sure.
He was living in a little hotel room in Tangier, and he would go up the mountain and with Paul Bowles and Brian Gysin, they go check out the music in the village. Well, so as you know, a few years ago, through a series of happenstance circumstances, I got to go to Tijuca and stay with Bashir Attar, who's the master of the
master musicians.
Of the master musicians.
Wow.
And I mean, there's a whole story behind that, but that piece in particular, I think, is inspired by some of the things I found up there in the village. the idea that music is not merely for entertainment. There's a healing quality that
expression.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a medicine, and for many years I've kind of walked this path between this raw ecstatic expression kind of side of what I'm doing, and then digging a little deeper underneath that, and kind of examining some of the states, like the mental spiritual states that I'm somehow able to arrive at with an audience, even in playing certain types of music. And I never thought that those states would be attainable with a piano, because it symbolizes kind of everything that I've rejected in, like, Western approaches to music, and the this very kind of confining way of making sound. But right as Saturn was going into Pisces, and this is not like a endorsement or whatever of astrology per se, but just in a metaphoric sense, you have the sign that represents music and dreams and the psychic underworld, and all of that kind of potentiation, and then the planet of the most kind of dictatorial structures, and so they're in each other's energy, and it was a really spontaneous thing. Like, I drove out to Evergreen. It's like, I'm gonna, like, hang out in the piano practice room for a couple hours and just see what happens, and it kind of hit me like this is like a way of revitalizing all the aspects of Western civilization that I see as like decayed or sick or polluted, or we see civilization just kind of falling apart in front of us in so many ways, and this is a way to kind of re-enchant it and bring the dream world back into this sort of particular approach to playing that I'm kind of trying to get at.
And what struck you to gravitate toward the piano again? Do you have one where you live?
Yeah. Actually, there is a piano in the basement of our house, and so I was, and it's not in great shape, So playing on kind of a clunky, beat up upright piano only whets your appetite for, getting on the ground here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it recorded on the punk rock piano?
No, it was recorded in the practice room upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What about, did you ever listen to any boogie woogie music?
Well,
we were talking about this last week.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I mean, I've listened to a lot of blues.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like, so although I identify, as a self-taught musician, no musician on the face of the earth can ever truly claim that they're 100% self-taught, right? So sometime in the middle of high school, I met this elder musician who was actually busking in downtown Spokane playing flute. This guy Louis Jameson, and I got to talking to him because he seemed like a real interesting guy. He's just kind of hanging out playing flute downtown, and I was like, oh well, like I've had a clarinet for a couple of months, and I'm doing some stuff with clarinet, and I've got this trumpet at home that I don't play that much, and my parents have a piano at the house, and we're just like talking about music and things, and so he offered to give me lessons, but he wasn't going to just teach me lessons on any particular instrument. He wanted to kind of give me like more of like a theoretical background on things. And going to his house was a real trip. He'd have the TV on, and he'd have like 2 or 3 different radios all tuned to different stations. And he's like, it's like, yeah, you got to be you got to be a receptor. You got to like receive all the different signals that are coming in, and
Right,
you
right.
know you got to tune into what you really want to hear. And he's like just kind of rapping at me about all this crazy stuff, and I was totally up for it. I was I'm like I'm game, like.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
started leaving the radio on all night long, and going to sleep with the radio on and stuff. And he was like trying to teach me all this like Beethoven stuff. He was like, "Oh yeah, you could be a total beginner, and we'll just start with the most difficult music possible."
Perfect.
I was like, "Okay, man, I'll try that out." And that didn't really go that well. And then I was like, "Okay, look, I just want to like, how can you like pretend that you know how to play the blues without really knowing what you're doing?" This is basically what I asked him. And so he showed me some stuff, just like some structural things. And what ended up happening is like I don't know that anything that I'm playing is going to actually sound like a real, blues song in like a codified way that you'd hear on NPR or something. But getting into the emotion of that sound, I think the essential thing is the crush notes. You know about that?
The crush notes?
The crush notes.
Tell me about the crush notes.
Well, so blues is this kind of like, it's a way of reclaiming, using a thoroughly Western instrument, it's a way of reclaiming and reasserting the power of an African scale system. So these would be tones that would be played on like a stringed instrument, like where you just got pegs on it. Each string is played open, and so you tune it to whatever mode that you're singing to. A griot would just tune it to their own voice. So there's no need to have any like standard tuning, like this A is always going to be A. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with where you start on your voice and the intervals that you get around that and how you tell a story with it. Well, a crush note, because we can't play the tone between a D and a D sharp, we just play both of them at the same time. And that's a crush tone. So when you got a bunch of other chords and stuff going on, you're approximating that quarter tone that would be kind of exactly
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good, that's kind of like a good starting basis on kind of some of the things I'll be doing tonight. And then the other thing is, as some of you know, I mean, I've been to Indonesia like 5 or 6 times and
Right.
played with all kinds of, people hear about Indonesia, they immediately think of gamelan, and that's obviously like a very important part of Indonesian music, but even more interesting than gamelan for me are, some of the village music styles that aren't really, they're kind of outside of like the court system.
Right. Not particularly like classical.
No, it's like the stuff that the rice farmers are into, stuff that the truck drivers are into.
Nice, nice.
So I kind of incorporate
Country music.
Yeah, essentially, or even rock and roll. So I kind of incorporate some of that approach into this instrument as well, even though it's kind of impossible. But I've come to appreciate that impossibility as well.
Well, I can't wait to appreciate the impossibility tonight. You ready to send us on a little journey?
All right.
Cool. And then maybe we'll catch up in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. We might do that. And feel free to come and sit a little closer. I don't know. This is a good sounding room. It might sound good in the back row, but if you want to come up closer, you can come up closer. I was gonna say like, somebody wanted to like lay down underneath the piano, you might get a real experience, but
Yeah.
probably.
All right.
Oh. We'll do a little conversation. Wow. Oh, I love you guys so much. We're going to do a little bit more conversation, and then I'll play just a little bit more at the end here.
How do your fingers feel?
Fingers feel great. I've been playing every day all this last week, so I've been working up to it.
And yeah, we can open the floor for audience Q&A if anybody.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Yeah.
This isn't necessarily a question. I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Because you just transported me.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
I love you, brother.
I suppose I was in different realms and dimensions just now. Yeah. So,
I love you so much, man.
yeah, that was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very transportive.
How much is improvisation? How much is being?
So, the way that people normally think of improvisation is like, people have this idea that improvisation means you're just making it all up as you go along. But there's always a fundamental underlying structure underneath that. And whether you're like fighting against that structure or trying to find a new structure underneath it in some way, there's still always going to be that kind of integral structure underneath everything. So you could say that this is 100% improvised, and yet it's also, well, 65% I know what I'm doing, but and it's like I could say like, oh, like I made a couple mistakes here and there, like I did, like I'm still training my hand to get it to do what I want it to do. So, I know like, oh, I mean, I hit this one thing instead of this other thing. Nobody else is going to know the difference, but I kind of know what's going on based on the structures that I'm following. But yeah, it's all improvised, and it's all, to the best of my ability, it's all kind of according to a grand master plan.
Where do you draw because you're playing in a way that has almost never been played before. You're playing in a way that is your own.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with the way you're playing?
By not listening when anybody else told me to play some other way.
Yeah.
And believing enough in, and there are always physical considerations. I mean, like, to get my arms and my fingers to do what I want them to do takes a lot of work. But in terms of like getting the sound that I want to get and playing the way that I want to play, it's just believing that I'm communicating something that's important to me, and it's important enough to share with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any others? Yeah, okay, great.
It felt like there were so many stories and creatures involved here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, how much of it is stories that you're carrying out and how much of it is emotions that you're carrying out? Because both are so present, but like the creatures are very vivid.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I mean, I'm kind of trying to make myself a totally blank slate, so to speak. I mean, I'm not really thinking of any images per se, but it's more like it's like when I'm painting and I'm getting all my colors kind of lined up, and like, oh, there's like that, I got that real heavy orange. I love that orange. I'm gonna use a lot of that orange, but I can't use just the orange, so I got to put this blue right next to it because that's gonna make the orange pop even more. And then I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'll go over it a little bit with like a little white line, and then I'll go over that with a black line. It's just like painting. So the image is something that kind of comes out of all that combination of colors getting mixed up. There are going to be images that are going to kind of pop out, and you're like, oh, whoa, I see it. There's an eyeball. There's a mouth. There's a flower. There's all all that kind of, yeah. It all just has a way of popping up. Yeah.
Exploration.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Arrington.
Yeah.
This person said too. And Markly Morrison, the Low Profile Podcast.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. I don't know, would we, if Markly wasn't doing this? But
Yeah.
thank you both.
Yeah.
I did want to ask Arrington, I've been listening to you for 25 years.
Yeah.
Never thought I would see you playing the piano, performing the show,
Yeah, man.
singing. I didn't even know you were playing the piano,
Yeah.
performing like that. I just want to know the genesis of the idea to put on a show and play the piano, not throat singing or.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Is there a moment?
well, yeah, no, I mean, literally, it was, it was that astrological configuration that I was talking about earlier, like, and it may have, it may have nothing at all to do with anything. It's just that understanding it in this metaphoric sense of Saturn in Pisces it's a restructuring of all these old structures, all these like original structures that have been taken for granted for generation and after generation, all these old kind of, in my opinion, kind of decaying structures. But it's like thrusting those structures into the territory of the absolute Neptunian dream world. Yeah. So what happens when you allow that to manifest itself? And as I was, like, I came out here to Evergreen. They have these practice rooms. You don't need to be a student or anything. You just, if the door's open, that means you can go in and practice. So I went in there and I was playing for a couple hours, and then I was like, okay, tomorrow I'm coming back and I'm going to bring my recorder, and whatever I record, like I'll do a little edits here and there if I mess up real bad, but like I'm just going to like put it out on, on my Bandcamp account, make it into an album. So I literally, it was literally the next day after recording it, I put it up online, and because anybody who's downloaded my music, like they get a little notification that it's like, oh, Arrington's got a new album. Like, well, what's this all about? So within a week, it was like the most downloaded thing that I've put up in like the last 5 years. Like everybody who was into it was, they were checking it out and sending me money and buying it and stuff. So I was like, Arrington De Dionyso playing piano isn't just a thing that I do to annoy people at parties when I don't want to talk to anybody. It apparently has some kind of artistic merit to somebody else besides just me. So the concert had to follow up.
I just wanted to say that image of you bringing that old piece, that old part really did come through, because I heard notes of Hammerstein, I heard notes of Duke Ellington, I heard elements of old piano, and that could bring you into a transformative extra sense where it wasn't built that way. The structures weren't built that way, but they evolved into like this other realm. that you were, whatever your vision was that you had initially in creating that, you did it.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you. Oh my God.
For me, I gravitated toward it, you know. I think I called you either the same day or the next day, and we started getting this
Yeah.
here planned.
Yeah.
But I like piano, and I'm always looking out for a refreshing approach to it because it's
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of you see a solo piano record. It's
Yeah.
chancy that you're going to probably hear something that's a reiteration of another solo piano record, and this is not that. And that is
Yeah.
why I think
Wow.
maybe it's so fetching.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, Markly and I, we was in a band together. So I have to tell you that, you know, your approach to playing, you know, the electric keyboard when you're playing with me was always a huge inspiration in, you know, just like, whoa, like, you know, because you'd be, you know, pulling in all the like electronic kind of noises, but then like you'd throw in like these like really like almost like wacky melodies, like these really like little cheerful little melodic lines in the midst of some of the noisiest, most chaotic kind of barrages of sound.
Right, like a cute
There'd be this little
hook.
like catchy tune in the middle of it, and I always loved that so much playing with you. So.
Yeah, I was just trying to be cute, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
One more maybe?
yeah, all right. Okay,
Another tune?
yeah, I'm gonna do another little thing here.
All right, thank you.
Now the I mean, it's like I went through that whole thing. Now the challenge is to try to come up with something I haven't already played, because after a while you'll figure out what my tricks are. But so I might have to start out with a song I already did, but it'll turn into something else.
The remix.
The remix, yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Arrington. That was so gorgeous. Yeah. What a wild night.
All these good people.
If you ever want to revisit this, it's going to re-air on Low Profile. So check that out on the podcast world.
God.
Or tune in Fridays at 4. You'll probably catch it on Chaos someday.
Is there merch?
I have Low Profile t-shirts. Brand new. This guy has so much merch.
I got
Let's
all kinds
talk about that. Give him your spiel.
Okay, well, I got all kinds of merch, but I didn't end up bringing any of it with me. But if you have a connection to the World Wide Web and go to www.arrington.bandcamp.com and hit return, if you're connected, that'll take you to a website that's got all my music up on it. And for the most part, you can download anything you want, but then for selected releases, I also make a physical edition of for example, the Piano Trance album. There's a physical edition that's basically, it's the exact same thing that you would get if you download the music yourself and burn a CDR, except it's got my writing on it. And then I've got one of my paintings that I fold into a paper cover and put it in a little plastic bag and mail it to you. Yeah. So it's all available on the internet.
Admission, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Well, it's just been such a lovely delight getting to share the evening with you all. And thank you. Thank you, Markly. Thank you to the Evergreen State College. I would have to wager the very first recording session that I ever did that wasn't on my own home Tascam Forte track was in this room back in 1993, I'm guessing. I submitted, I did a recording session that was submitted for the Evergreen State College CD project.
On a compact disc.
On a compact
Wow.
disc, yeah. So that was the first time I'd recorded, outside of just doing my own recordings on a tape recorder at home. So there's a lineage and a legacy with this crazy institution, Evergreen State College. Yeah.
Very true. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody.
Yeah.